Hello all, Sique here, and welcome back to The Path to Unpunishable, where I talk about clarity, healing, and walking away from punishment culture. And we are going to now card 20, The Open Hand. And I have to say, one of the things I love about walking the path to unpunishable is learning how to be generous without feeling used. All right? Because an open hand is not a lack of boundaries. For me, especially, is a result of having them. Because you know where your hard no lives. And I say this all the time. The person who is the most effective and happiest simps in the world are also people who have a hard no and is simping for someone who respects a hard no, right? You know what you'll not tolerate, you know what you won't fund, and what you will not emotionally subsidize. And you built your life in a way where people you've built your life in a way that people who rely on punishment, manipulation, or scarcity cannot destroy what you've made. Only then does generosity become safe. The open hand is not empty. It isn't empty gestures. It isn't a show. It's steady. It offers because it wants to, because it chooses to. Not because it's afraid of what happens if it doesn't. And that matters. And it matters because generosity is often confused with self-abandonment. Or worse, generosity is when people see that you are generous, they expect your self-abandonment. You hear about this a lot when somebody gets a bit of money, and people who didn't have money and who ask for money and they have no expectation of paying it back, and they ask, and when the person they borrowed it from said, well, when are you going to pay me back? Well, you have so much money, why does it matter to you, right? They expect you to give without any responsibility, they expect you to give and then not expect to be paid back. They ask you to give and ignore the boundaries that were set. And that's because many of us were taught that kindness means endless availability, that love means overextension, that being good requires tolerating harm. In systems built on punishment, generosity is a trap. Give too much and you are taken from, but say no and you'll be punished. The open hand says fuck that to that false binary. Absolutely refuses it. It teaches that generosity is only meaningful when it is voluntary, truly voluntary. That means you can say no, not when your survival is on the line. When your nervous system is important and it's meaningful, when your nervous system is not braced for retaliation. An open hand that is forced is not generosity, it's compliance. And it matters because it reclaims generosity as a position of strength rather than vulnerability. It says that the goal is not to become untouchable, but to become unexploitable. And when your life is structured so punishment does not work, you're actually free to give. And for a long time, my generosity was inseparable from fear. I gave time, I gave labor, I gave emotional bandwidth and creative energy because I believed that withholding any of it would cost me safety or belonging. And that was the thing I wanted more than anything else. I wanted to belong. I didn't want to do it myself because my spiritual work is lonely work. So when I knew people were messing themselves up, I petitioned to the Lord for leniency, believing that this generosity demonstrated my worth. I believed if I kept my hand open long enough, someone would finally treat it with care. That was a lie. And that belief nearly hollowed me out. But what changed was not that I stopped being generous. What changed was that I stopped offering what I could not afford to lose. I stopped pouring into spaces and to people that required me to be small, quiet, or more grateful than honest. I remember I was working downtown with a tech company and I wanted to do a boot camp. And I realized that they were going to require that I not work. And I didn't know that, and they didn't mention that until well after and I had paid. And I decided that I wasn't going to do it and that I wanted my money back, right? And after going around and around, because they didn't want to give me my money back because they said, quote, "We don't want you to talk shit about us." I'm like, I'm absolutely going to talk shit if you don't pay me my money back. And so they did. And then they talked to the guy that owned the incubator that we were at. And he looked at me. It's like, "You know, you should be grateful to be here, don't you?" That ain't got nothing to do with my money, though. And when I think about people wanting you to be more grateful than honest, that always pops in my mind. And it's moments like that I realize that some people are just not worth saving. Not because they're evil, but because they demand sacrifice without consent. Because they punish boundaries as betrayal. And with that, with the open hand, once again, it's having that hard nose knowing when to close it. And I've learned how to close my hand without clenching it, to withdraw without getting angry and without hardening up, to protect without being cruel. And once I learned that, generosity started to sprout up, and it returns as something clean. Now, how does that look like? What does that look like through the lens? And it looks a lot like it did for the shaman, because we're still talking about people acting from their pain and understanding that is a them problem. So once again, empathy is understanding that people act from their own wounds and their own incentives. And you can do that and you can see that without excusing the harm they cause. It is seeing the human cost on both sides of the equation and on both sides of the exchange. Truth is acknowledging that something actually cost you. What something actually cost you. And that it cost you. Not what you wish it cost. Not what you tell yourself it should cost. And sometimes not even what these people are telling you it costs. And the truth part is naming the actual cost, honestly. Kindness is choosing generosity that does not require self-erasure. It is helping in ways that preserve dignity for everyone involved, including yourself. And joy is felt when you're giving without dread. It's that feeling when you know you're giving and you don't have to worry about, or you're giving or you're offering support and you don't have to worry about bracing for a backlash. Joy is a generosity that replenishes you rather than depletes you, rather than making you tired. Anti-greed is knowing when enough is enough. It is refusing systems that hoard your labor, your care, or your creativity while calling it community. It's setting limits that prevents extraction, that prevents taking pounds of flesh off of you. And it does that through discernment, because that's what this card teaches. It teaches that you don't owe access to people who misuse it. That boundaries are not a failure of compassion, but the infrastructure that makes compassion sustainable and joyful. This card teaches that generosity is a choice, not a debt. That you are allowed to say no. And no is a complete sentence. You do not have to justify it. That you can close your hand to protect what matters and open it again when the conditions are right. Well, you didn't do it during then, yes, because the conditions were not right. It teaches that punishment only works on people who need approval. When your worth is not contingent on being liked, generosity becomes an offering rather than a survival strategy. On the path to unpunishable, an open hand is an offshoot of the shaman. Because once you faced your inner terrain, once solutions are cut away, confirmation burp. Once you have faced your inner terrain, once illusions are cut away, you are no longer negotiating from fear. You are no longer giving to earn safety. You are choosing where your energy flows and how much of it flows. The open hand is what becomes possible when punishment has lost its leverage. It is how you remain humane without being naive, and how you can stay soft, pure of heart, and dumb of ass without being breakable, and how you participate in the world without being consumed by it. And with that, I'd like to leave you this word. May your hand open from abundance, not obligation. May your boundaries make your generosity clean. May you give where it nourishes and withdraw where it drains. May your open hand be an offering and never a surrender. Amen. Talk to you soon.